Perkins or in Montreal, you could play 365 days and never play the same club.
Things are looking up for Hawkins. A recording deal leads to a couple of breakthrough singles and exposure on TV shows, like Dick Clark's American Bandstand.
We were on actually one night with Chuck Connors, the rifleman, and of course the scene for the whole show was this Western look, and naturally we ended up with the garters on our sleeves. With the aprons, we were dressed like waiters.
So I remember it, boy, we thought we was in the big time, and that was the time when everybody in Arkansas saw us. Boy, and we went back to play, and then me and Levon, we thought we was somebody then.
The Hawk was something else. He looked the part, walked the walk, and talked the talk.
She make a young man groan at an old man pain. When she took my money was a crying shame.
Slowly, as some of the boys would get homesick or want to get married or this and that, they'd leave, and I would hire Canadian musicians that had been, you know, following us around or watching us, or we knew of them.
The first recruit is a persistent, street-smart Toronto kid. Robbie Robertson would finally claim his spot after a series of heated guitar duels.
Hawk now was always looking to set something like that up, you know, get a couple of real good players and pit them against each other and have them try and just, you know, one of them cut the other until he was bleeding, you know.
Robbie looked at me one day and said, "Fred, you're a great guitar player, but one of these days I'm gonna cut you. I'm gonna beat you." I said, "Well, okay, your lessons are over, son."
Robbie started getting really good, and just in leaps and bounds, because, you know, he worked at it 7 days a week, night and day.
So from then on stage, I turned my back to Robbie, so he couldn't see my fingers. I wouldn't let him see my fingers. I was highly offended.
With Levon and Robbie in the group, the Hawk runs into an apprentice butcher with rock and roll ambitions.
Well, I had never seen a rockabilly live show like the likes of Ronnie Hawkins, giving up so much energy, you know, showing the people just rockabilly music was just another force, you know, and that was some heavy rock and roll in them days for me. I was so impressed that I booked myself to be his opening act that following spring for 5 shows.
Also gunning for a spot in the Hawks is a Stratford, Ontario soul disciple whose voice immediately catches Hawkins' ear, Richard Manuel.
When it was time for us to need a piano player, I called Richard and he came in. At that time, of course, after having Stan Celeste, Richard was not quite adequate on the piano, but he could play simple, but Richard had a throat. Richard could really sing that rhythm and blues stuff and soul stuff.
Garth Hudson is the missing piece of Ronnie's musical puzzle.
We needed someone to teach us a little music, and we needed someone to show Richard a lot of stuff. Garth had some kind of a jazz band or something there in London, Ontario. He'd played with different people, and he was kind of known as the musician's musician.
I talked to Robbie and Levon about playing, and I said, I can't play that stuff, you know, I can't play like that guy. He bleeds, you know.
Ronnie appealed to the musicianship of the band and how much better we all could be with Garth, giving us music lessons and helping us find some teachers to study with and so forth, and let Garth's family know that we weren't just there to, you know, play every club and drink everything in every club that we played. It did have a purpose.
Everything Garth hit seemed to fit. The rest of them, they'd play through things and do this and do that, but Garth would hit notes and music that we weren't familiar with, but it seemed like, man, it just laid right in there, just give it a little push.
Toronto was the best I've ever seen. There were more places to play. Well, if you went on up to North Young and started with Oscar Peterson and Ed Thigpen and people like that who played up in the jazz clubs on the north end, if you came on down and came by the Zanzibar, you might have Billy Riley there from Memphis. You'd come to the Edison Hotel, Carl Perkins would be there. We'd be with the Hawk next door at the Lecoq door. Ray Charles and his orchestra might be around at Massey Hall. Cannonball Adderley and his band would be at the Colonial. And maybe Harry Belafonte down at O'Keefe Center.
We'd start maybe at 8:30 or 9, and we'd play for 30 minutes and break for 30 minutes up until 1 o'clock. We'd do about 5 or 6 sets.
We were playing 7 days a week and practicing at least 5, and so they really got good and tight.
So I'd cut out back door, and I'd be standing behind the stage listening to these guys. They were strong. They were as good as any rockabilly players anywhere.
She don't love me like somebody will.
There's still guitar players everywhere that used to just come in just to watch Robbie, and drummers used to come in just to watch Levon. They all had a fan club and a following, each and every one of them.
We always drew so well that it would be extended for 2, 3 weeks, so you get to know the night people. Besides the people coming into the club, you get to know all the street people, the rounders, and on, and the doormen and the managers of the different clubs, and they were always there on their breaks, you know, to see Rompin' Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawk.
See, we lived at the Warwick Hotel, and back then, the Warwick Hotel, you know, was the red light district. And we learned every pimp's first name. Levon can still remember. And all the hookers, you know, we knew by their first names, and every now and then they'd slip in and give us a little freebie.
So basically, we would just each drink, sweet, play, and party. It was a pretty rough life.
With the recently married Hawkins taking a few nights off each week, the group begins to indulge themselves with some musical influences of their own.
Oh yeah, we stayed in touch with anything that was going on from the South and the urban stuff too, you know. We liked Stanley Turrentine and Cannonball Adderley.
Mainly, we wanted different music. We wanted to play some stuff that the Hawk knew wasn't going to go over. And we didn't know it and wanted to play it, and did, and it didn't go over.
You know, I was from the old school. You have to play what the people want, you know, and I had to contend with the bar managers or the club managers. And so when they'd get 4 out there doing some of that stuff, it wasn't going over to our clientele. Man, for the few people who did dig it, really dug it, because they knew that this band had something special.
And along in there, we started dreaming about us singing all the songs. And that side man, front man routine was getting a little bit old for us. And we wanted to do it with no front man. We wanted to do it where we did all the singing and all the playing.
On their own at last, and now billed as Levon and the Hawks, they're footloose, fancy-free, and knee-deep in the blues.
I'm gonna get up in the morning. Baby, I believe I've dust my broom.
We hit the Peppermint Lounge just after we had left the Hawk and had our buddy John Hammond show up. And when John played with us, I thought we had one of the best bands in the country, because John knew the stuff, was a hell of a player, and we knew the stuff, so John came down and was having a hell of a time. The guy there at the Peppermint Lounge told us, and you know, this blues shit'll never get you anywhere. You know? It's a twist joint. You know? Play the twist.
Wants every downtown man. Man, she's a no good phony. Boy, they shouldn't have lied on the street. Baby, they shouldn't have lied.
Those were really good times, because what you saw on those wonderful occasions was a bunch of boys who really loved each other and talked to each other musically.
I was just mind-boggled. These guys were one of the best blues R&B bands I'd ever heard. They were so intense and so especially good.
Because the cumulative example of what a band really was, of brothers, was Levon and his boys. You know, it was as good as it got.
Though they're still playing the same old club circuit, their reputation is growing. Meanwhile, the musical underground buzzes with rumors that the times are indeed a-changing for a folk music icon who is not only in the process of reinventing himself, but also changing the face of rock music forever.
And it ain't no use in calling out my name, babe, like you never did before. And it ain't no use in calling out my name, babe, I can't hear you anymore.
Good friends in the right place. Mary Martin, a friend of ours from Toronto, was one of Albert Grossman's right-hand people there in his office there in New York. She knew Bob, of course, from working there at the office, and put a word in to Bob. Knew he was ready to have a band and play some music.
Dylan had gone electric, and to the die-hard folk fan, he had become a traitor to the cause.
The controversy of us playing with Bob, you know, that brought on a lot of stuff, like standing ovations of booing, you know.
They certainly booed, I'll tell you that. You could hear it all over the place. I don't know who they were, though, and I'm certainly they whoever it was, did it, you know, loud, twice as loud as they normally would.
You know, you play a song and you get through and everybody just, boo, the worst, awful, you know, get out, you know. And it, boy, it'll make you fighting mad, I ain't joking. It'll really get under your skin, or it did me.
Yeah, I remember it well. Albert Hall, and Bob did a set at the beginning. Like, the show was in two halves, and the first half he came out and did his usual thing with the guitar and the harmonica. And then in the second half, he came out with the band. Now, we knew this was going to happen anyway, but Bob just came out and he said, well, you know, you all may know this song. Remember how it goes? Well, here's how it goes now, you know?
You know, I knew that what we were creating, you know, even to the ones that hated it, you know, was a whole lot bigger than the band or Bob or us all put together. It was a hell of a thing. You could feel that.
I heard you booing out there. I heard you booing. Let's go. This guy here booed. He booed.
As the world tour ends, fate steps in. Dylan is laid up for a year after a motorcycle accident and retreats to the Catskill mountain town of Woodstock, New York. Levon, Robbie, Rick, Richard, and Garth follow Dylan to Woodstock. It's here that they set up musical shop in a rather unremarkable house they endearingly dub Big Pink.
Ain't no more king on the rising.
After we met Bob, we were afforded the luxury of time. You know, we didn't have to play 6 or 7 nights a week. And just to be able to sit back and think for a few minutes truly was heaven sent, you know, and that kind of changed everybody's life, you know, and helped us hone and craft our career. But once again, it was us getting together every day, you know, and applying ourselves where good things started to happen.
It's an idyllic period in their collective lives, a time of friendship and unrestrained creativity. Now known as simply the band, they set about writing the material